Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Today we are going to learn about the transport of oxygen and carbon dioxide inside the blood. Actually, the carbon dioxide is released by the tissues to the interstitial spaces, and then from the interstitial spaces this carbon dioxide travel to the capillaries, and from the capillaries this carbon dioxide reaches the systemic circulation, and from the systemic circulation this carbon dioxide goes to the alveoli, and from the alveoli carbon dioxide is released to the external environment. Similarly, the oxygen is absorbed inside the alveoli into the capillaries. The capillaries are all around the alveoli, and these capillaries transport this oxygen from the alveoli to the heart, and from the heart this oxygen is transported to systemic circulation, and when from systemic circulation this goes to the capillaries, and from the capillaries this reaches to the interstitial spaces, and from the interstitial spaces again this reaches the various types of tissues, and then from to each and every cell. The whole cycle is continued during the respiration, during the breathing, and during the exchange of carbon dioxide and oxygen inside the body. Similarly, this is not as simple as I have told you, because the transportation of oxygen and carbon dioxide inside the blood capillaries and inside the body tissues take place majorly by diffusion, by the from higher concentration to lower concentration, but the major role is not the major role is conferred by the concentration of carbon dioxide and oxygen. In the first slide we are going to discuss the first slide. In the first slide, the carbon dioxide is transported inside the blood capillaries and inside the systemic circulation, 90% in the form of bicarbonate, and 5% in simply dissolved form, in original form, and 5% in the carbamino-fruitine form. As I have told you that the carbon dioxide is transported from various tissues of the body to the systemic circulation, and then to the veins of the body, and then from the veins to the alveoli, and then from the alveoli this carbon dioxide is released to the external environment through the lungs. This carbon dioxide, simply 5% of the carbon dioxide is released from the tissue, from various cells to the interstitial spaces, and from the interstitial spaces this carbon dioxide goes to the capillaries, and then from the capillaries it goes to the blood vessel, to the veins, and from the vein it goes to the vena cava, and then to the heart, and then to the pulmonary artery, and from the pulmonary artery it goes to the alveoli, to the capillaries around alveoli, and then that carbon dioxide is released to the external environment. But this is only 5% carbon dioxide which travels in this manner, because this carbon dioxide is not, this is in simple dissolved form. This is not in the form of, this is not bind to any object, this is not bind to any protein or any integrity inside the body. Similarly, this 5%, I'm going to tell about this bicarbonate later, but because this is very important, 90% of the carbon dioxide is transported in the form of bicarbonate, so I'm going to tell about this later. First of all, this one, as we know that our body contains large number of protein, and similarly the case with the blood also. In the blood there are large number of protein which are called plasma protein, and we also know that the red blood cell also contain a sort of protein that is called hemoglobin, and that hemoglobin, in the hemoglobin, the globin is protein, and that protein contain large number of amino acids, and each and every amino acid contain amino group, as you have learned in the biochemistry that each and every amino acid contain carboxyl group and amino group. So each and every amino acid in the hemoglobin contain the amino group. So if the carbon dioxide is combined with the amino group of the protein, if the carbon dioxide is combined with the amino group of any protein, that is called carbaminoprotein. But if this carbon dioxide is combined with the amino group of the hemoglobin, that is then called the carbaminohemoglobin. That is not called carbaminoprotein. You can categorize this as under the category of the carbaminoprotein, but this is not carbaminoprotein. This is actually carbaminohemoglobin. Okay, so the more than 70% of the carbon dioxide out of this 500, more than 70% of the of the carbon dioxide travel in the form of carbaminohemoglobin, and less than 30% travel by attachment with the other protein, with the other amino group of the protein. So you can call that 5% of the carbon dioxide travel inside the blood in the form of carbaminoprotein. Actually, this carbon dioxide make bond with the amino group, and that is in the form of carboxyl group. So this travel to the capillaries around the alveoli, so where again this carbon dioxide is released, that carboxyl group is converted to carbon dioxide again, and that is released to the external environment. Now coming toward this point, the 90% of the carbon dioxide is traveled in the form of bicarbonate. So we know that carbon dioxide is highly lipid soluble, and this can travel to each and every tissue of the body. So if the carbon dioxide, if the energy is produced inside each and every cell, during the production of energy, the carbon dioxide and water is also produced. So this carbon dioxide travels from the cell into interstitial spaces, and from the interstitial spaces this carbon dioxide goes to the capillaries, because this carbon dioxide will travel from higher concentration to lower concentration, and the concentration of carbon dioxide will always be higher inside the cell. So from the higher concentration, this carbon dioxide goes to the lower concentration, which is the plasma, and from the plasma it will also travel to the blood cell, that is the red blood cell. So when the carbon dioxide is when this carbon dioxide enters inside the red blood cell, inside the red blood cell there are large amount of water, so it combines with water in the presence of carbonic anhydrase. That is a type of enzyme which is always present inside the red blood cell. So what will the carbonic anhydrase do? The carbonic anhydrase will help the synthesis of carbonic acid by the combination of carbon dioxide and water. When the carbon dioxide and water combines together, they make the carbonic acid in the presence of carbonic anhydrase. The carbonic anhydrase is responsible for the synthesis of carbonic acid inside the cell. This is the carbonic acid, and this carbon dioxide combined with this water in the presence of carbonic anhydrase. So one thing you should be quite clear about is about this carbonic anhydrase. What is the basic function of carbonic anhydrase? It will always be responsible for the synthesis of carbonic acid, that may be from the combination of carbon dioxide and water, and that may also be from the combination of proton and this bicarb or bicarbonate ion. When the concentration of water and carbon dioxide is increased in large amount, the carbonic anhydrase will form the carbonic acid from this one. And when this the concentration of this ion, these two ions are in large quantity, then their carbonic anhydrase will convert these two ions into the carbonic acid again. So when the carbonic acid is synthesized from carbon dioxide and water, this carbonic acid will automatically be converted into ions, to negative ion and positive ion, to carbonate and the proton. This proton will be entrapped by the protein chain inside the red blood cell. Inside the red blood cell there are a large number of protein chains, especially those of the hemoglobin chain. So this proton will be entrapped by the chains of amino acid, by the chains of protein inside the red blood cell, and this bicarbonate will travel from the red blood cell to the external environment, because in the external environment there will be low quantity of bicarbonate. So this bicarbonate will travel from the red blood cell to the external environment. This and actually this was the bicarbonate which was 90% that was responsible for the evacuation of carbon dioxide from the body. So this bicarbonate will travel to the capillaries around the alveoli. And this what is this proton will combine together with the protein chain inside the red blood cell. So when the protein chain of the hemoglobin is concentrated with this with this proton, when the hemoglobin chain contain large number of proton, when the number of proton is in a highly concentrated form inside this protein, what will happen? This large amount of proton inside the protein chain inside the hemoglobin will lead to the detachment of oxygen, from the hemoglobin. This will take place automatically when the proton concentration inside the red blood cell is increased. This will lead to the detachment of oxygen from the red blood cell. So what will happen? This phenomena is actually called the Bohr effect. In the Bohr effect, what will happen? The carbon dioxide, when the concentration of carbon dioxide is increased inside the red blood cell, this will be converted into carbonic anhydrase, and this carbonic anhydrase will travel outside the red blood cell, um, uh, and this will also lead to the accumulation of protons inside the red blood cell, and this proton will bind to the chain of hemoglobin. When the concentration of hydrogen inside the red blood cell is increased, when the concentration of proton inside the chains of amino acid inside the chain of protein inside the red blood cell is increased, this will lead to the detachment of oxygen from the hemoglobin. This effect is called Bohr effect. The concentration of proton is increased due to the high concentration of carbon dioxide. Due to the high concentration of carbon dioxide, the concentration will be increased, and this increase in proton will lead to the detachment of oxygen from the hemoglobin, or the release of oxygen from the hemoglobin. So you should be clear about this, that the you can say that the increased concentration of carbon dioxide inside the red blood cell will lead to the decreased concentration of oxygen inside the red blood cell, or increased concentration of carbon dioxide inside the red blood cell will lead to the release of oxygen from the hemoglobin. This effect is called Bohr's effect or Bohr effect. Bohr effect is actually the release of oxygen due to the high concentration of carbon dioxide inside the red blood cell, and that this happens due to the increased concentration of proton inside the red blood cell. Similarly, when the this bicarbonate, I have already told in the first slide that the dissolved carbon dioxide also travel inside this red blood cell or inside this plasma. The carbon dioxide plus hemoglobin, carbamino hemoglobin or carbamino protein also travel inside the blood, and this carbonic anhydrase, this carbonic acid or bicarbonate, this bicarbonate also travel inside the plasma. So this leads to the pulmonary circulation, and in the pulmonary circulation in the alveoli, what will happen? The carbon dioxide, dissolved carbon dioxide, will eventually go over here, and also the carbon dioxide which is combined with the hemoglobin will also be released The carbon dioxide which is combined with the hemoglobin will also be released due to decrease in concentration of carbon dioxide over here. Due to decreased carbon dioxide, decreased level of carbon dioxide all around, so this hemoglobin will release this carbon dioxide. Similarly, the protons, what will happen to photon? This photon will combine together with this carbonic with carbonate ion. This proton will combine with carbonate ion, because the over here I have already told you in the first slide that in the second slide that the function of carbonic anhydrase is the synthesis of carbonic acid, that may be from the carbon dioxide and water, or that may be from the carbonate, bicarbonate and proton ion. So this depends upon the concentration. This will be shifted to this direction. Then the proton concentration will combine together. The proton will combine together with carbonate ion, and this will with the bicarbonate ion, and this will make the synthesis of carbonic and carbonic acid, and that carbonic acid will eventually be converted into water and carbon dioxide, and that carbon dioxide will again comes out of the red blood cell to the external environment. That carbon dioxide will comes out to the external environment. So why this phenomena happens over here? Because why this proton detach from the hemoglobin? Why these two ions combine together? Because of the Haldane effect over here. Why this oxygen detach in this portion? Because of the Bohr effect. Why this oxygen detach from the hemoglobin over here? Because of the Haldane effect, because of the Bohr effect. And why this carbon dioxide is detached here? Because of the Haldane effect over here. What is the Haldane effect? Haldane effect is opposite to the Bohr effect. The Bohr effect is the release of oxygen from the hemoglobin due to increased concentration of carbon dioxide, while the Haldane effect is exactly opposite of the Bohr effect. Because in the Haldane effect, what will happen? It will the Haldane effect means the release of carbon dioxide from the red blood cell, the release of carbon dioxide from the red blood cell due to increased concentration of oxygen, the release of proton, the release of proton from the hemoglobin due to increased concentration of oxygen. When the concentration of oxygen inside the hemoglobin is increased, this will lead to the detachment of proton, and this detachment of proton will lead to the formation of carbonic acid, and that carbonic acid will lead to the formation of carbon dioxide, and that carbon dioxide will be released to the alveoli of the lungs, and that alveoli will be carbon dioxide will goes out of the body through the lungs. So the Haldane effect is exactly opposite to the Bohr effect. And the Haldane effect, the increased concentration of oxygen inside the hemoglobin leads to the detachment of proton from the hemoglobin. So when the concentration of oxygen is increased inside the red blood cell, the concentration of proton inside the red blood cell will be decreased, and that proton will combine together with the bicarbonate, and that bicarbonate will form the carbonic acid, and that carbonic acid will be converted to carbon dioxide and water, and that carbon dioxide will leak out of the body, or will be released out of the body. That is what we call the Haldane effect. And so similarly, when the concentration of oxygen outside the alveoli, outside of the body, is high in amount, and the concentration of oxygen over here in the red blood cell is low in quantity, so this oxygen will bind together with the hemoglobin, and that will travel to the to the systemic circulation and into the each and every tissue of the body and once again this red blood cell will reach to the capillaries where the concentration of carbon dioxide will be in high amount. So when the concentration of carbon dioxide is in high amount, what will happen? The Bohr effect will once again be effective over there. Bohr effect will lead to the release of oxygen over there and formation of what? The formation of carbonate ions. So this was all about the transportation of oxygen and carbon dioxide inside the body.